Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's Valsa, and today we're talking about the Mossrock Auroch. This is the brand new pet that they released with the latest Infantry Heroes, the latest patch. So let's take a look at the one that I just caught, right? I haven't put any skills on this yet. These are the skills I caught it with, so pretty good there. I didn't have these slots, these stats with it. I rolled a few times to get this, so this is where I'm at. And let's start with the talent skill, because this is a little interesting. The talent coil. And first of all, this is a rage skill. So that means is it goes off, your primary casts their rage skill, then your deputy commander casts their rage skill, and then the Mossrock will cast its rage skill, right? And it'll repeat as long as combat goes on. Okay. And when the Mossrock casts its skill, it gets a little buff for 3 seconds. And what does it do that buff? Two things. First of all, it gives you some hit points for those 3 seconds. Second, it gives you a little aura that does damage to anyone that hits you for those 3 seconds, okay? And anyone that hits you gets hit twice. The first time, the damage factor is based on the pet's strength and a couple other things we'll talk about later on. The second time an attacker gets hit, the damage factor is determined by the Infantry HP bonus, right? And this is a new concept to Call of Dragons, and we'll talk through this in detail in a little bit. But just one last thing to note before we go on here. The Mossrock, you can get hit with this aura effect essentially 5 times per second. So this is very clearly a pet designed for infantry in the open field or a rally that's getting swarmed or something like that. Someone who's getting attacked by a lot of enemies simultaneously. Okay, the Infantry HP bonus, what is that? Okay, the Infantry HP bonus occurs whenever, one, you have a fixed duration HP gain, two, by infantry units. You have to have both of those conditions to trigger it. And let's talk through that. Okay, so let's look at our heroes here. And we're actually going to start with Danville, right? He's an infantry commander, obviously. And we'll look at his third skill here, Brothers in Arms. Now, I don't have it maxed, but if you have it maxed, it gives him and his unit a flat 20% HP increase all the time. Is this going to trigger the infantry HP bonus? No, it will not, because this occurs all the time. It's not for a fixed duration, so it's not going to trigger the infantry HP bonus effect. Okay, let's take a look at a second commander, Hosk here. And his rage skill gives him, among other things, 30% hit points for 5 seconds. All right, that's a fixed duration HP increase for a limited amount of time. Will that trigger the infantry HP bonus? No, it will not. This will also not work because while Hosk will trigger the first condition, an HP increase for a discrete amount of time, he does not trigger the second condition, which is that he's not an infantry commander. If you look at his tags here, he's overall rally precision, and because he doesn't have the infantry tag up there, he can't trigger it. Okay, who can trigger it? Well, it will come as no surprise that the two new infantry commanders that this pet was built for, they can trigger it. And we'll start with Lei Quan here. You look at his fourth skill. When you have it maxed, it gives him a chance to gain 5% hit point for 5 seconds. He's an infantry commander. This triggers it. Spot on, no issues there. The second commander that can trigger it is the other new infantry commander, Kuma. Now you got to get him awakened to do it, but if you have him awakened, every time he gets a buff with an innate skill, he gets 20% hit points for 3 seconds, all right? He's an infantry commander. He's gaining hit points for a discrete amount of time. That will trigger the infantry HP bonus. Okay, we already talked about the Auroch getting more damage from the infantry HP bonus. The other thing, the other payoff, if you will, for the infantry HP bonus also comes from Kuma. His second skill gives him healing, and you get more healing scaling based on however much infantry HP bonus you have at the moment. Okay, so those are the two infantry commanders with their skills that will give you an infantry HP bonus. Does anyone give you an infantry HP bonus with their talents? The answer, frankly, is no. We'll take a look at Garwood here. He's got a good example of this. Now, he has the infantry tree, but if you go down the infantry tree, you'll see that there's nothing that gives him extra HP for a discrete amount of time, so the infantry tree just doesn't trigger this, all right? Now, he has that effect in other trees, like the tank tree. This talent here, Steel Sinews, will give him a chance for 5% hit points for 3 seconds. That would seem to trigger it, but it's not in the infantry tree, so it's no good. All right, so when it comes to commanders, we have two ways to get it. Lei Quan has a way to trigger it, his fourth skill, excuse me. And then Kuma has a way to trigger it, his Awaken skill, and he also has a payoff for it. Okay? Any other ways to get it? Well, yeah, there's one other way to get it. The Mossrock Auroch itself, what does it do when it triggers its Rage Talent skill? It gives you some hit points for a few seconds, and because the Mossrock Auroch has the infantry tag, this will trigger itself, right? So there are 3 ways to trigger this mechanic in the game right now. The 2 new infantry commanders and the new pet. And there are 2 payoffs for this skill, the Mossrock Auroch itself as well as Kuma. Now, like, that's the talent skill. Let's talk through the unique skills. We'll start with the Amber skill. It's pretty straightforward. Advanced Coil. This, remember when you have the talent buff up, anyone that hits you in that little 3-second window gets hit twice. The Amber skill makes the first tick of that do more damage. Pretty straightforward, no issue there. The second skill here, Intense Coil, is kind of interesting, right? Remember, the in addition to the reflection buff that the talent skill gives you, it also gives you just a flat HP increase for 3 seconds. Intense Coil increases the amount of that HP increase. Okay, now, so this is kind of interesting to me because it's unclear whether or not this is going to be a meta pick. Coil scales based on your infantry HP bonus, as well as giving you an infantry HP bonus. Intense Coil increases the infantry HP bonus you get from the pet. So the pet fuels itself, and Intense Coil makes the pet fuel itself even more. Gonna be interesting to see whether or not that's the pick for this pet. The other interesting thing I just want to point out for this pet is that its 3 key attributes are strength, agility, and endurance. Luck is actually coded very lowly on this pet. You can see, for example, here I have S tier luck with only 148 score. That, basically that means you're not going to be able to use any luck skills to the same effect you do on other sort of key, infantry type pets. In particular, Blood Roar, a luck skill that increases the crit rate of your pet damage. It's typically a meta pet for something like this, but on this pet, it's not going to do as much. Okay, having said that, how do I see building this pet out? I really see 3 routes. One route, seemingly the most obvious route, is the reflection, open field, anti-swarm build. Coil itself is pretty good for that, and you can enhance that ability by giving this pet Counter-Strike and Advanced Counter-Strike. Stay away from Intense Counter-Strike, as well as your typical pet damage boosters like Fatal Bite, Angry Roar, and in this case, Tooth and Claw. Maybe Blood Roar as well. We'll see how the meta shakes out. The second way I can see building this pet is for the rally meta. And for the rally meta, you want to consider going the Fierce Attack route. You'd go Fierce Attack. You'd think about Advanced Fierce Attack. You'd probably go Intense Fierce Attack, but that's another luck-based skill, so you'd have to at least think about it, as well as your typical pet damage boosters. The third way, the budget build, you take advantage of the fact that Coil not only does damage to anyone that attacks you, but it also increases your hit points. And so you take advantage of that. You'd build in Counter-Strike, but then you'd also build in a lot of skills to enhance the skill damage and the counterattack potential of your 2 heroes. All right. Look, I just caught this pet today, and I don't have the full builds for you yet. But in the future, look for a video from me explaining both in detail the pet damage builds as well as the budget builds for this pet. All right, and that is our first look at the Mossrock Auroch. It looks very strong, and in particular, the new heroes who take advantage of it, honestly, they look extremely strong. So I expect to see a lot of these on the battlefield. I'm working on mine right now, but, this pet's only been out a day, so haven't made all that much progress just yet. All right, very quickly, I'll show you what's the status of my KVK. So obviously, we're in Zone 2. We've been fighting for a while. The Thunder Rocks open in a little bit here. In fact, let's take a look at the Augur Stone. I've had a ton of fun in this KVK so far. My hospital's completely overwhelmed, but, it's been worth it. I'm having a ton of fun. I look forward to continued fighting. And that's all I have for you today. So until next time, you stay classy, Belleron.